All right, so we're nearing the end of our course here, and before we get started with our final project, I wanted to have a week devoted just to getting prepared for it. So we all start out with a full 2 weeks without having to worry about, well, how do I begin? Where do I get started? I'm locked in an artist block or writer's block. Well, that's what this week is about. We're going to get ready for that stuff, and what the project is going to be is we're going to go and take a character from Dota 2, the game. I'll go ahead and go to the website. Dota is a MOBA type game. It's pretty popular these days. It's a top-down game where you control one hero and lead armies to assault other bases. It's very similar to an RTS like Warcraft or StarCraft or Command and Conquer, except that you control one unit. So why did I pick Dota? Well, they have all of their characters available for download. And that is a ton of stuff that we can choose from. So in this project, we're going to be choosing one of these characters and we're going to reimagine them by building new gear for them. All right. So within Dota, they actually have a workshop, and this is what this page is, where anybody that's an enthusiast and is skilled enough can take one of these heroes and reimagine what their gear looks like, essentially giving the character another persona, another type of theme. So what are we going to do in this chapter? Let's go over and go over that real quickly. Like I said, we're going to pick a character in the Dota 2 game to reimagine. We're going to choose a theme for their gear. And then after we choose the overall theme, we're going to kind of write a small backstory about this new theme. So, you're kind of writing like a character bio, an alternate character bio for the character. And then we're going to designate what types of gear we'll be making. We'll kind of create like a bullet point list and say, this is what I want to make for that. And then we'll create a visual collage of elements that you want to see from the gear set. So you can go online and we can just have one big splash page of all the types of visual elements, design elements that we want to pull from. And lastly, we're going to actually download the character model from the Dota 2 page and clean up the scene. So whenever we actually have the final assignment for the semester assigned to us, we already have our concept art, we already have our theme, we already have our art direction nailed down, and we even have a Maya scene that we can start modeling in, ready to go. All right, so a lot of things are going to be covered in this chapter. This chapter is more about just pre-production, preparing, working with other people's files, and just basically giving yourself a direction to start going in when you start a big project, a big creative, free-form, open-range project like you're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks. All right, so why don't we go ahead and figure out how we can go ahead and pick a character? Well, I have a link right here. You can find it in the outliner that we're going off of right now, or you can find it on the Moodle page on your course description. There'll be a link to it in your downloadable resources. So we're going to go ahead and navigate to it. And if you're not familiar with the game, then you're going to see a lot of characters that you're like, what? The best thing I could say to do is just look at the character profile pictures and their names and see what kind of stuff strikes you. A lot can be said from these little splash pages of their portraits. Like Huskar, with a name like that and that picture right there, he kind of seems like a monstrous kind of barbarian character. In actuality, he's a troll character that throws spears and kind of like almost a primitive type guy. Lena, well, that's a girl. In actuality, she's a fire mage. So when you get to something like, okay, Lena, you're a redhead. Okay. So if you actually click on the little bio picture, then you get like a quick little paragraph about what this character is about. So this goes on to say that Lena is actually a fire mage or a pyromancer. So she's a mage and she controls fire. So you get a little idea about that. And if you're totally not familiar with the characters and you want to see what the character looks like more, their full body, well, you can do a little image search. Just type in Dota 2 Lena and go to images right here, and you'll get tons of pictures about what this girl's about. I mean, obviously fire mage, fire mage, fire mage. It's pretty obvious here, so you can get a little bit of a better idea about what's going on with this character. So that's your job in this first little bit, is to pick one of these characters, read their bios, look at some of their images, and decide on it. For my intents and purposes, I'm going to pick my favorite character from this game. His name is Axe, and he's a big old red orc, a general in a orc army, who's basically just the best warrior in the army and in the lands. Uh, he used to have a name, I guess, but he got so good with his huge battle axe that he just calls himself Axe now. And he refers to himself in the third person, so that's obviously it's obviously a pro for this character, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, maybe bookmark this page or just copy the web address just so I can get to it easier. Or if you're just comfortable re-navigating it to it every single time, you can do that as well. All right, so I've picked my character. All right, what do we have to do next? Well, we have to start designing a thematic theme around the character. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and look closer at Axe? I want to bring up Axe images. Oh, well, I guess we have to be more specific. Dota2 Axe. We'll do the same thing we did for images here. All right, that's a good picture of his in-game model there. All right, so what we can tell about Axe right now is he's kind of like a barbarian type orc. A lot of iron and steel type weaponry. So that's who Axe is. What we want to say is, okay, how can I take this character, just his basic concept, his body, how can I reimagine this character where he's still a red orc, or she's still a redhead female human, or he's still a spider like Broodmother or whatever, but how can I customize the gear for him to give him a whole new look? Because right now this guy looks kind of like a warlord, a primitive warlord or a barbarian warlord that has access to steel forges and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this character and I'm going to turn him into a prehistoric barbarian hunter. That's what I want to do with this character. So there, I've nailed my theme, right? Um, I got to know about my character through his bio, and then I've developed my theme for my character. Now I need to write a little backstory for my character, so I'm going to open a WordPad, and you know, a little backstory. If you want to flex your narrative muscles, you can, but I'm not looking for anything longer than a paragraph. You know, 5 to 10 sentences at most. If you want to go ahead and expand upon that and write a little short novella, that'll be fine. But give me a 5 to 10 too long, didn't read version of it, a little synopsis. So I'm going to just say that Axe is part of a prehistoric orc tribe. He is their strongest hunter, so much so that he has risen to let's say, a position of leadership. All right, so basically, I've said that he's prehistoric, he's a strong hunter, and he's kind of a leader figure within his little caveman or cave orc tribe. All right, so that's what I want to say. How does this guy operate? What is his main impetus? Well, he loves being in command and loves to show off his hunting prowess. So he wears trophies as armor. He wears maybe we should say game trophies as armor. So here I'm saying that he loves to show off, and I'm kind of getting to the meat and potatoes of how we're developing a backstory for how this character is going to look. So he likes to say, okay, I'm a good hunter, so I'm going to wear the bones of my game trophies, the fur of my game trophies as armor, and adorn myself with the greatest hunts I've ever had. All right, so that kind of takes care of the gear. What about his weapon? Well, hunters don't really use battle axes to hunt wild game. So, and I haven't really known too many prehistoric war bands that use giant battle axes. Well, maybe the axe is a symbol of power, like it's the tribe's shamanistic staff or something. But this time it's an axe. To cement his leadership, he possesses the tribe's honored giant axe as a symbol of his, I don't know, his power and respect. So his axe is going to kind of be part weapon and part totemic or ceremonial type display. So the axe is going to be a little bit more ceremonial than just a big old piece of rock on a stick. So it's going to be a little more ornate. And that's pretty much all I'm going to do for this backstory. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. All right. So I've made a folder. I will make a folder in a second that we can use to start saving all of our stuff. So we call it, let's say, prehistoric axe background. All right. So I got that saved on my desktop for now. So there we go. Images on the web. Okay, we're right here. So I've wrote the backstory for my character. So next, I got to see what pieces of gear I'm going to have to redesign. So you know what? I was too quick to get rid of my little background here. So after you wrote your background, you've got your theme, prehistoric. You got his. Okay, possesses. There we go. Just fixing some grammatical errors. I love them. I got his backstory. It kind of describes what kind of stuff he likes to wear. The backstory can be deeper, maybe even more thematic or more narrative based. But I wrote enough to kind of know where I want to go with just his look. So the next thing I need to do is I need to traverse back to his bio page over here, and at the bottom of the page, we have these guys right here. All right. So these are actually the item slots that you'll be required to make. You're going to have to make at least 4 things. Axe has 5. He has a miscellaneous armor slot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and list each one of these like so, kind of make some bullet points. All right. And I'm going to describe what each one is. I'm going to make a saber-tooth tiger skull helmet. His axe is going to be a ceremonial wood gnarled wood stock handled stone axe. So kind of 1 or 2 sentences, a lot of adjectives being thrown around here. His armor, well, you may not know exactly what that. Okay, armor, does that mean everything about the character? I might have to come back to armor to figure out what that actually means. So I can do that after I download the character model, and we'll do that in a second. All right. So there's his belt. I know what belt's going to be. It's just going to be a leather and pelted fur belt. Nothing too crazy. And miscellaneous. I guess I get to make anything that I want. I really won't know that either until I figure out what that armor piece, because if I be like, okay, I'm going to make a shoulder piece from miscellaneous. Well, if my armor piece is the shoulder, then that could be a problem. So we're going to save this. We're going to come back to it for now. Okay. So I guess it would be a good time to go ahead and download our character and figure out what he's all about, get a better handle on him, and maybe clean up my Maya scene to get a closer look at my character. So we're going to hit up how to download your character's model and prepare the Maya scene, and then we'll kind of continue with fleshing him out a little bit more. All right, I need to be able to see what types of armor pieces I'm actually going to have to make for this guy. So we'll save this for right now. All right, and we'll minimize that. All right, so I'm going to download my axe model now. So model and texture files right here on your resource page. I'm just going to simply click the little download, and hopefully it'll take take longer, a little bit less than 15 seconds. And we're back after downloading that. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my downloads folder here, and there's my axe zip. Okay, so I got a zip file. Now we're starting to actually deal with more and more files. So I think a good thing to do right now would be to create a folder hierarchy. So I want to navigate to my modeling 1 folder and go to my chapter 11. All right, and there I've named my folder, Rotor Patrick, the correct naming convention. And inside of this, I have a folder called Maya Scenes, Reference, Source Files, Source Images, and Textures. And we're going to use all 5 of these folders in a second here. So Source Files is where I want to put that zipped file. So let me find my Downloads folder. All right, that's not there. Let me go Downloads. So that's where I downloaded it. I'm just going to drag and drop that download into my source files. All right. And then I'm actually going to unzip it here. All right. So I'll keep the zip. So now we're going to have to navigate through our source files. Okay. And it might be a good time to go ahead and get Maya ready to go, ready to open. Okay. So what we're going to do is we have 2 ways we can get at our source file. I'm going to keep just kind of scrounging my way through it, and there should be a models folder, heroes, axe, and then we have a few different folders here: FBX, Maya, SMD. Let's go ahead and open the Maya folder, and there's my axe model, and I'm just going to drag and drop that .ma into a brand new fresh scene inside of Maya. All right, so we're probably going to get a few errors with this because these Maya scenes that we're downloading may not match the 2016 version here. So just ignore those errors for right now. What we're going to do is we're going to go through here and we're going to take just what we need for this character and create an even cleaner scene here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open up my outliner. My outliner is going to be very instrumental in cleaning up the scene or getting the pieces or the models that we need. All right, so if you go to my outliner, very nice naming conventions. It's really nice. See, guys, I'm telling you, of nice layers, nice outliner. This is professional level stuff. So that helps this process out even more. Because what we're going to do is we're going to go to the 6K body, and we have a 3K mesh and a 6K mesh. Well, what does that mean? Well, this designates how many polygons each model has. So if I grab the 3K body and bring him over, and I select the 6K, look how many more polygons we have in the midsection of my character model versus the small version, the 3K version of my model. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick with the 6K. Why not, right? Let's get the highest resolution character we can. And I'm just going to delete the model that has the fewer amount of polygons. It may be, your scene may be a little bit less organized. So you may have to like go into your outliner and then do what I did and kind of separate the 2 models out and then look at each one, maybe even each piece individually and see which one has the higher polygon count. So that has the lower polygon count. And then I have these 2 shoulder pads. What are those? Okay, so that's awesome. That's what I needed to know from earlier. My axe model 6K armor. So his armor is an actual shoulder piece right here. So that solves that question. But this is the lower one, so I'm going to get rid of it. There's his belt that I'm assuming is, yep, belt. So I pretty much got rid of all the 3K models, and this is what I'm left with right here. All right, so this is going to be an important step in the process here. I've gotten rid of the lower poly stuff, and what we want to do now is we kind of want to make our own scene with just the models and none of the rigs, none of the other independencies, none of the other textures, because they can be known to cause problems. And if I wanted to move things around, look, the model's locked down on the outliner. There's just a lot of things going on in their version of the scene that maybe we want to bypass. We could try to go back and use this scene and kind of unlock things and get rid of dependencies, make our own materials, reuse materials. but this is by far the fastest way to get on your feet with this project. So what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is go to Windows, go to Settings and Preferences, and I'm going to go into my plugin manager right here. All right, we get this little weird window right here. I'll expand it. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down to where the O's are. So kind of scroll down here, find the O's, and we want to go to OBJ Export, and we want to make sure that it is loaded. This is going to allow us to export our models in a brand new file format called .obj. They are the most universal file format that you can probably use in 3D graphics. And they also kind of strip away all the dependencies and all the other things that maybe a busy scene or somebody else's scene is bringing with you. So if we export out our models as .objs, we'll get really clean models that are basically fresh and clean, and we don't have to worry about much else going on with them. So don't hit browse. I just like to hit refresh. My OBJs are checked. Then we can close that. So here we're going to export out two different things. The first thing I'm going to do is maybe open up my outliner, and I'm going to find the mesh called body, or you can just click on your body. And your character may have multiple pieces of their base body. The thing you're going to have to find out are what are the pieces of gear for your character, and that's easily done by going back to your resource page where you downloaded your character, and I guarantee that all of your different pieces will be listed right here. So that'll kind of give you an idea of what is your body and what's not. So hair, that's a little discrepancy. I'm guessing the 6K hair pertains to the head slot right there. I'm guessing hair means head. So you're going to have to use some critical thinking skills. But what we want to do is we want to isolate just the main body of my character. So we're going to select my character's body. We're going to go to File, and we're going to go to Export Selection. All right. And I want to navigate back to my modeling folder. Where is it? Modeling 1. And then Chapter 11. There we go. And then we're going to go to source files, and I'm just going to put him anywhere in my source files outside of the original Acts folder. All right, so now we have to go to files of type that we can see down here, and we're going to select OBJ export. And then we're going to give him a name like Acts Body Orig. All right, that's a pretty good naming convention. His original body, short and sweet. And then what we could do is we can go to these other options over here. And when you pick an OBJ, you have file-specific options. You can turn materials off. We don't want to export a material. We want to keep the smoothing and normals together. I guess we'll keep everything else on. But if we turn off our materials button right here, we won't get that extra material file that'll export out with us. We'll just get the .obj. So now I'm going to export that selection. And there I go. There's my original zip folder. There's my unzipped original folder. And there is my OBJ of just my body. All right, so now we're going to just select all the pieces of gear for my character. His weapon, his armor. And with all those selected, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to File, Export Selection. Be sure not to hit Export All. Export Selection. We're going to call this Axe Gear Orig. And we're going to export that. All right. Now we're just going to go make a brand new scene. Okay. We're not going to save anything in that original. We got what we wanted. Now we're going to get out. Now we're going to import those OBJs we just exported. So we'll go to File, Import. So the difference between open and import is import will bring other models into your current scene. Open will just open that exact file. So import allows you to bring in a lot of different objects, even though you can't select them multiples at a time. So I'm going to navigate back to where I save these OBJs, and I'm going to import my body back in. And then you might get a warning saying that the OBJ has groups, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. So there is my base body right there. And then in your outliner, it might be a little messy right here. we can go ahead and delete all these extra little plus signs. I think it'll be fine. There we go. Didn't change anything. And I'll clean up that file name. So we have axe body original. I'll select that body. I'll go to layers, create empty layer. And let's call this body orig layer. And then I'm just going to lock it down. Or actually, I'm going to, I just made the layer. Now I have to actually right click and add selected objects to that layer. There we go. So there's my character's body. And we're going to do the same thing for his gear. We're going to File, Import, my gear. Get that same kind of warning message because of all those different pieces of gear. Kind of clean up my outliner a little bit. And then something interesting's happened. All my gear is now one object here. So why don't I go to Mesh, Edit Mesh, Mesh, and we'll go to Separate. And we'll separate all these pieces of gear. And then that might do something, it might be a pain in the butt because now I have to recombine the axe. So I can just go to Mesh, Combine. So there's my axe. And then why don't I go ahead and make a new layer? Create empty layer. We'll call this gear orig layer. And I'll go ahead and add this new axe I just combined into that layer. And I'll make it invisible. That way I can kind of get axe out of the way. I've already combined it together. And then why don't I go ahead and I can hide my body too. Oh, there we go. Now I can kind of see the pieces of gear individually. So I'll grab his belt again. I'll combine it. Add it to the gear. Now it's gone. There's his hair. That's all one piece anyway. Add that to gear. And then his shoulder piece is made out of multiple different things. We're just going to mesh, combine those as well, and add that to there. So great. Now we have all of my pieces of gear nice and combined together. Why don't we go ahead, see how my group though is like really messed up. So we're going to go to Edit, Delete All by Type, History. That gets rid of all those extra nodes there. And then I have another issue in my outliner. My gear group that made when I separated my meshes, they don't contain all the pieces of gear anymore. So we'll select those, middle mouse click, drag and drop it back into my original gear group. And why don't we go ahead and rename these? And I'm not going to put too much thought into naming them, just so I know what they are. Belt, and we'll call that armor. All right. And if you wanted to, since that is my head, I can just call that head. I can rename hair to head because that corresponds. And I can call axe actually weapon. So I'm renaming my pieces of gear to how they correspond with the loadout here. All right. So that could be pretty handy in the future. So I'm going to delete all by type again just to get rid of that history. And there we go. I have a nice clean file of axe. And I'm going to go ahead and save this scene. No extra skeletons, no rig, just nice old axe. So I'm going to navigate to my Maya scenes folder. I was in source files. Now I'm going to go to Maya scenes. This is where I'm going to save the file where I imported those OBJs. I'm going to call this guy axe001. That's a good way to start. All right, so after we got our model all figured out, why don't we go ahead and see if we can attach some of the source textures to this character here. All right, so I'll hide his original gear. He already looks kind of like a caveman. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to navigate back to my original files that I downloaded from the workshop resource page. And instead of going to models, I'm going to go into materials and just kind of dig my way through. And here I have just a bunch of maps here. All right, so what we're going to look for is we're going to look for any map, and let's change it to detail so we can see a little bit easier. We're going to look for any map that says color, okay? So armor color, belt color. Is there any way to, no, guess not. So we're just going to look for maps that say color. And in fact, I wouldn't delete maps from here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the maps that say color, and I'm going to copy them, and I don't know, maybe bring them out and just kind of separate them. So these are all my original ones. I've copied the maps, the color maps that I really want to work with. So I know these are just the color maps. We're not going to deal with any of those other maps yet. We haven't gotten there. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to open up Photoshop, maybe minimize it a little bit. And here's just a fast way to get files open in Photoshop. I'm going to go to Axe Body Color and just drag and drop it straight onto this guy right here. Maybe we can even bring in all the files here. So I'm just dragging and dropping them into this dark gray bar at the top of Photoshop. It's strange that his body has that dimension. Let's look and see canvas size. Let's go to pixels. 2048. Okay, so he has kind of like a half texture sheet. That's kind of neat. All right, so this is his. Let me go ahead and get rid of the grid there. So this is the textures just for his default body. So what we're going to do, TGAs are short for Targa, and they're a very file intensive, very heavy file type. What we're going to do, we're just going to make PNGs or JPEGs out of this texture. We're going to go to Save As, and we're not going to save it in that same folder. We're going to navigate all the way back up to the root of my folder, and let's go to Textures, and I'm going to make a JPEG, and I'm going to save Axe Body Color as a JPEG in my Textures folder right here. All right, great. So you might have already made, maybe in past assignments, you've been using Maya's own project folder structure. So that's fine. That's totally fine. You can make your own folders in there too. So if you were actually saving the textures in there, you would save. Let me go back to where my textures folder was. Instead of putting them in this little textures folder I made, you would put them in source images, the Maya made one. So that's kind of confusing. By this point, you probably know that already. So I'm just kind of clarifying. I don't know. I decided to use my own custom folder structure for this. So my textures are right there. And if you wanted to, you could go ahead and maybe save out the rest of these things in the same way. So save Axe hair color. I'm in my textures folder where I save my body color. And it's a relatively fast process, I guess, at this point. We just got to make sure we're all saving the same file format. Okay, so there's hair, there's my weapon, and this must be the armor. So we'll save as, make it a JPEG. There we go. All right, was that everything? So we'll go back to source files, Axe, materials, models, heroes. So I had his weapon, his hair. I don't think I got the belt. There we go. We'll save that as a JPEG in my textures folder. So basically we're doing this because the textures included with the project or the zip file you got, I've noticed that they're not the most reliable textures to link into Maya again. So we're just creating our new textures in a smaller file format and in a different place. So when we go back to Maya, I can open up my Hypershade here as my shortcut. I keep using them. So we'll go to Rendering Editors, Hypershade. Why don't we add some color to this guy right here? All right. So I'm going to make a bunch of Lamberts. I'm going to call this body matte. And then we're going to link that body texture. All right. So where am I at? Okay. So I'm going to navigate to my modeling, Dota2. There's my folder, textures, body color. All right, great. Now we have my body material. Middle mouse click and drag onto Axe. Wait a minute, nothing's showing up. Well, why is that? Okay, he's locked. That's why. There we go. So now I have a color on Axe here. All right, great. So you can do that for the remaining pieces of his old gear if you'd like. I'm going to pause the video and go ahead and do that 4 more times so you don't have to sit through and watch me do it. So I'm back and I got my axe fully textured. I made separate materials for his armor, his belt, there's his body again, there's his hair, there's his weapon material, and just applied them to the character. There's another good time to save. You're going to save as, and we're going to call this Axe 002. Axe 002 will have all my materials that I've made saved and ready to go on it. All right, so I'm pretty much ready to go. My scene is clean. I can hide the original gear, or I can bring it back to kind of get reference on maybe how I should model the newer stuff. And we're ready to go. All right. So what we need to do is we need to quickly revisit um, going back and giving our gear their name. Remember, I didn't know what armor referred to, and I didn't know what miscellaneous was. So I know that armor is now a shoulder piece. So I can say something like a woolly mammoth tusk shoulder piece with fur and stuff. And then my miscellaneous, I want to give him a gauntlet, gauntlets on his hands of three-toed sloth, uh, giant sloth, claw gauntlets. And I'll be able to make one and duplicate them to both. All right. So this is what you'll be turning in as your narrative background. A Word document, you can either make it in WordPad, Office. You can even make it in Google Drive. So here is a Google Drive document, and you can download and you can download it as a Microsoft Word document if you wanted to do that too. But I I want to have a physical copy of this, so don't just send a link to a Google document or what have you. All right, so that's finished right there. So the next thing we have to do is create a visual guide or visual reference for our character here. All right, so we know what each of armor piece is themed around, right? We wrote those descriptions down. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to my root directory within my project file. And I'm going to take this Word document and I'm going to put it in reference, okay? That's kind of where I want to see your Word document, right there in reference, okay? So now we have to figure out what kind of visual elements we want to see for this character. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to start finding images on the web that support the theme we have chosen. All right. The images we can find can kind of just give an overall style or a look or a feeling you want to have for your character. And I also want to see pictures with real life references for the types of details you want to model. Modeling from reference is of the utmost importance, especially when you're starting out. So I'm going to see a lot of stuff in here that you're going to be modeling directly from. And then just other inspirational stuff, maybe stuff that supports their backstory. So then we're gonna quickly download. We're gonna search for them. We're gonna download them, and we're gonna rearrange them in Photoshop to make a big old collage. So I'm gonna bring in this right here. This is another web page I have, and we're gonna go through. We're gonna look at all the different reference material I was looking at here. All right. I'll just give a quick little rundown of things I was looking for. So here's some examples of some leather and fur armor that I thought would be a good source to model from. So we even have a bone influence in there, so that's really nice. Probably would leave out some of the steel and metal brads, but the twine, the fur, and the bones, they all work together. And here's some, I'm even using concept art that other people have drawn. All right. And then I was looking for pieces of wood that would, make for a good ornate ceremonial axe handle for him, something that was a little bit more gnarled, maybe not so practical in battle. Um, so I was kind of looking for stuff like that. And then I was looking for uh, maybe clothes, just more clothes references. Found these guys right here. We kind of know what a caveman looks like, but I just wanted to have them. And then this was a pretty good one. This is I guess, a reimagining of an actual primitive tools that the cavemen would have used. I don't know if it's historically accurate, but it looks like what a caveman would use. So we're gonna go on that. And then I just found a bunch of images for all the different types of game. There's a three-toed sloth, the saber-toothed tiger, and woolly mammoth all together in one picture. Perfect. And then I just found various pictures of there's the three-toed sloth claw. So I'm guessing axe is a little bit bigger than the normal human, but these claws gauntlets are going to be still be huge on him. That's going to look pretty cool. There's a three-toed sloth skeleton. There's a woolly mammoth, and I tried to find some images that had kind of the animal to scale of a human, just so I know exactly how big I'm working with stuff. And there's a skeleton, just so I can get them some ideas for bones. There's my saber-toothed tiger skull, and there's his skeleton. And then I found already some saber-toothed tiger skull uh, random prop things that I found online. So we're going to download all of these images. So once you get your image up, let's say I'm going to start fresh, and let's look for I don't know, barbarian belt. Ooh, that's the kind of look I was actually trying to go for here. So I like that a lot too. So we're going to click on it. I'm going to hit view image, and then so you see how the image is just kind of by its own self on the own web page. We'll right click on it, and we'll go to save image as. And don't worry about the name of it. We're just going to save it in our downloads. We're not going to worry about the names of these downloaded images because we're going to make one big collage of all these images on there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and download all these different images. I'm going to pause the video while I do that. I'll be right back. All right, so I just downloaded all my images, and if I bring up my downloads folder, you can see I have a lot of stuff to choose from. So we're going to go back into Photoshop now, and let's get rid of these little texture maps we had. What we're going to do is we're going to make a collage. And the fastest way to get started is I'm just going to go to my downloads folder. I'm just going to drag and drop it in this gray up here. All right. And for some reason, I keep showing the grid when I bring stuff up. All right. So I'm going to start out with this image. All right. Why don't I crop it a little bit? So to crop it, I'm going to go down into my layers. Find your layers option down here, and I'm going to double click where it says background and rasterize it, put it on its own layer. And then I'm just going to kind of drag a marquee box, select the marquee box option right here, drag the marquee box around what I want to keep, go to select and go to inverse, and then delete everything else around it, just so I'm focusing on what I want to get. All right, now I need to make the canvas a whole lot bigger. So I'm going to go to canvas size. We do that by going to image, canvas size, and I'm going to anchor it in the top left so it grows to the bottom right corner. And let's look and see how many pixels we're working with. We're just going to make something huge, man. Let's do like 2,000 by 3,000. All right, that makes a huge, huge canvas. So I like using my little navigator window right here. If I go to window and open up navigator, I get this little guy right here, so I can kind of zoom around my navigator and scale in and out using it. Kind of gives me just an overall overview of what I'm working with. So now we're just going to save this, and this is going to be the start of my collage. We'll save this as, and let's navigate back to modeling 1, chapter 11, my root project folder, and we're going to save this in reference where we saved our narrative design. And I guess we can say, let's go ahead and save the PSD. Let's call this axe reference. That's kind of the name of my character. I'm not going to be too strict on what you call this. All right. And then we're going to make sure we also save it as a JPEG. All right. I'm not going to grade a PSD. Those files are huge. So we're just going to make sure we save it as a JPEG when we finish. And then from here on out, it's just a matter of bringing in your images. So there's a few ways we could do it. You could bring it in as a separate file right here, and then we could press Control A to select all, Control X to cut, and then go back over to my reference place and just Control V to paste, and maybe make it a little bit bigger. Control T will bring up your transform handles, and I'll maybe make it a little bit bigger. All right, we might run out of space too, so we gotta kind of pay attention to our scale. Then I can get rid of that old file, and then I'm just gonna keep doing the same thing. We're just gonna get these images in here one way or another. Just copy and pasting. All right. And you can even drag the image straight into your Photoshop uh, thing, but it creates like kind of like this source image folder. Um, I don't know. I don't like them too much. They don't give you as much freedom. I mean, I guess you could just work with them. It is just a collage. So why don't we quit overthinking it? So I'm gonna keep my pieces of reference image kind of close together as far as what they're trying to say. So all my clothes will be on here. And I guess we can just, and don't be afraid to kind of overlap them. We're just going to do a quick, dirty splash page. See how I'm just, there is going to be some order to it, but I'm not going to get hung up on it. Press enter to confirm it. Yeah, make sure you press enter after you position where you want it. All right. Oh, and we have even more stuff. And I can scale it too, so I can put this maybe down here. All right, just a good old collage. All right, so I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to pause the video while I do it so you don't have to watch me do everything. So I'll pause it and I'll come back and show you what I came up with. So I've been working a little bit and I came across the problem. You see how we have these reference folders here? Well, I wanted to delete this little bit of the arm off of this one little belt picture that we're looking at right here. Let me zoom in a little bit. I want to delete the arm off of here, but since it's a reference, it's not directly editable. So the way to fix that is I'll select it and we can make sure that it is what it is by hiding it. I want to make a new layer above it. So this little new layer button down here at the bottom right here, create a new. And then I'm going to select the new layer 03, and hold down Control and select the belt. And then with these two layers selected, I'm going to hit Control E. Control and E for elephant will combine them together, and that'll kind of rasterize the layer. Now I can actually go in and edit these source image files. So that's a little trick to do if you need to come in and kind of edit these guys and crop them a little bit more. I'll be right back after I finish this. All right, I got everything on my collage right now. Why don't we put the final touches on it by cropping it a little bit? So I'm going to go over here to my crop tool. I'm just going to drag the box around that. All right, great. So we're pretty much good now. This is exactly what I wanted to have. So I'm not going to put any more work to it. So the background transparencies, don't worry. We'll save our PSD. And then when we save as a JPEG, that transparency will turn white. All right. So let's see what we came up with in my reference. And there is my reference Bible for my caveman. I can zoom in and see things a little bit clearer, navigate it. Now I just have an overall feel for what, I mean, you look at this, you instantly know I'm trying to make a caveman character. That's what we were trying to do there. All right, great. Okay, so that does it for the collage. Let's see, is there anything else we had to do? No, I think that was it. So I think if we include the following things in our file, we'll be pretty much set for our project folder here. All right, so why don't we quickly go over the exact things we'll need for our assignment. Here we have an assignment overview. So you're going to want to have your Word document with the following. And let's go back and let's look at how I set up things here. So I have my root folder named correctly with the class name and the chapter name. And then I have a folder for my myosines, a folder for my reference images. And this reference image is where you're going to keep your collage and your biography for your character. In your biography, I want a 5 to 10 sentence paragraph talking about him. And then I want to see laid out with a bullet point exactly what you're going to be making with like this short little descriptions tied to it. So that's the first thing I'm going to be looking for. The second thing I'm going to look for is that visual guide, that visual reference that we just made a second ago. And I'm going to find that also in a reference folder. Okay. So your bio and your collage will both exist in the same folder there. And then just a cleaned up file with your character in it. That'll be good. Um, yeah. So we'll go back here. And in my myosines, you can see I have two files here. I'm going to assume whatever iterative save has the highest number is the save that will have your character in it. It's not really a final file yet because we haven't made the gear. So I'll just go with whatever iterative save is the highest on which one I'll open and look at. And if you want to include your source files and source images, you can do that. And then we're just going to go through and right click our folder, and we can just archive it whichever way you like to archive something. So I use WinRAR, and we'll just zip it up, and then you'll just send your .rar or .zip or whatever you want. But 7-zip's fine. You'll just upload that to Moodle with these things included, with these bullet points included. All right, thanks guys. I hope you guys have a lot of fun with this.